See, actually okay, now tell me guys, now is it audible? Now am I audible to all of you? Okay, so just ignore all these things that we discussed. Okay, what I'll do is I'll start from the beginning. Okay, so guys, what we are going to do now is, okay, we will start with Karl Marx. Okay, so this is going to be the most important session for you, one of the most important thinker, even though you have Emile Durkheim, Max Weber, Parson, Merton, Mead, but I would consider Karl Marx as the most important thinker. And in the next coming 5 days, we will be discussing about Marx, and your understanding about Marx will completely change. And that is going to give you huge knowledge and in-depth understanding of what actually Marx want to say. We will come to know that. Okay, so this is going to be the most important session even within Marx, because we are going to introduce Marx, the first and most important concept, that is his idea about society and individual. So what is this idea about society? What is this idea about individual? If you remember, before also we have discussed about Marx to an extent as a macro sociologist. Marx giving importance to society, to an extent as a positivist also, because of this approach, importance to society, studying external reality, macro approach, and all these things, right? So this is what we are going to discuss in the first session. This can be asked as a question directly, Marx's idea about society and individual, or they can ask you Marx's idea about society as one question, Marx's idea about individual as another question. Okay, and then tomorrow what we will do is we will be discussing the first theory which you see in the syllabus, that is mode of production or historical materialism. So this is the first theory that we are going to deal, but these are two important concepts. These are two important sessions. And then what we will do is we will be discussing class struggle. That is a other theory, class and class struggle. And then we will discuss another most beautiful and important theory, that is alienation. Okay, so these are actually what we are supposed to do. And then in between, we will discuss concepts, very important concepts like dialectical materialism, because I'm actually expecting a question from dialectical materialism also as a separate question. It can be a 10 marker just like this. What is this concept of dialectical materialism? If you were attending that last session that I've taken, a 2017 question paper, right, that we have discussed last day, there, if you remember, I've told you how Marx have changed Hegel, or explain Marx theory of historical materialism as a critique to Hegelian concept, right? So that is Hegelian speculative philosophy. Hegel, what is his understanding? And then what is Marxian understanding? The Hegel's understanding is dialectical idealism, and Marx will change it to materialism. How that has happened and what he did, what are the modifications he did, we will be discussing. And that also can be asked as a separate question. So rather than writing from our side, what we do is I'll be giving you a short note. I'll explain in the class also what Frederick Engels have wrote about dialectical materialism. So that is how we are going to do that. And then in the last session, what we will be doing is we will discuss about the critical analysis of Marx. So we will follow this formula as we have discussed always. CCR, the contribution, and then the criticism, and then the relevance. When I discuss the criticism, what I'll do is I'll discuss general criticism, which can be applicable in all critical analysis of Marx. And then I will also go with specific criticism, which could be applicable for this theory specifically, this theory specifically, this theory specifically. And then the relevance of Marx. Okay, so whatever be the question from Marx, you will be able to answer, and I'll make sure that you will have a very good understanding about Marx once we are done with this session in the coming week. Now, any doubts you have, you can even ask in between. There is no problem, because thinkers, I don't want to mute you, or just for the purpose of keeping that silence in the class, I'll mute you. But in case if you have any doubt, immediately you can ask. You don't want to wait till the end. Even between word to word, if I discuss something and if you're not able to understand, still you can ask. So that is the purpose of this session actually, right? So thinkers, give maximum attention, and I'll try to help you out the maximum possible that I can. And we are strong in thinkers, and I'm expecting that you will also be strong in thinkers once you're done with the session. Okay, so what we will do today, we will start with his idea about society and individual. Guys, understand this, very important. Give your maximum attention in this session, because anyway, thinkers is actually going to decide how strong you are going to be in your optional. And if you're strong in your optional, you will be in the top list also. Otherwise, it is going to be very difficult. Okay. So this session about understanding of Marx that we are going to start is the most important session, in fact. So we will see what is his idea about society, how he conceptualized society, what is his idea about individual, how see individual. Okay, all those is what we will be discussing in this session. So let's get started, guys. So when we discuss about his idea about society, few things that you need to keep in mind. That Marx consider everything in his complete analysis, and in his theories, you will see everywhere he is giving importance to production. Okay, so production, according to Marx, is the first historical act which would have been happened. So without production, human beings cannot survive. In order to survive, if you need to survive, you have to produce. It could be anything. Without production, without value addition, you cannot survive. So production of material life would have been the first historical act according to Marx. So guys, there's a point. In order to survive, man must produce. Production is very much essential. So all his understanding will be based on this simple fundamental concept that is related to production. So I will be using about production everywhere from here onwards. The individual to individual relation is understood in terms of production. You and me, the relation between you and me also understood in terms of production, because there is a production process which is going on in this class. Here, when I say production, it is value addition. Okay, so between individual relation, individual society relation, everything Marx explain in terms of production. For example, you see a person, you consider a person like that we have learned in the chapter on stratification, upper class, middle class, lower class. That is also understood in terms of what? In terms of production. Where you stand in the production process. If you are at the lower level, you are a lower class. If you're at the middle level, you are a middle class, like managers, superiors, supervisors, and all. And if you're at the higher level, like you are the entrepreneur or the business owner, then you will be at the top. You getting me? So from here onwards, this is some words that I'll be using in the class that again need to be printed in your mind, because that's the language in which you need to write the answer. So production, we will be using these words again and again when we discuss about Marx. Okay, so production is the most important dimension that we are going to discuss from here onwards. Everything is understood in terms of production. When we discuss about the theory of historical materialism, we will explain through production of material life. Material life means whatever we do. Theory of class struggle, we will again talk about that. Alienation, completely related to production. Okay, so Marx understands society and individual and everything in terms of production. So my point is, if you need to survive, you have to produce. Production is the most important step. Okay, so why we need to produce? Because we all had needs, right? We have needs, and these needs are limited. It is supposed to be limited, right? The basic needs are there, but for human beings, there is nothing like basic needs. Once you met with the basic needs, then you will start developing more and more needs. That's not the case with a dog or a cat. If you see, once they met with their basic need, that the shelter and the food, then they're happy. But that's not the case with the human beings, right? Once we have this shelter, food, dress, and everything, then we start creating new needs. Then we need to have a car, right? And once you have a car, then you need to, when you have a car like under 10 lakh, then you need to have a better branded car. Then you want to have this Mercedes or BMWs and all, right? So the need is never ending. That means the greed will come. We don't want to say that, but the need is never ending. So the production is essential. And this production process is also never ending, and it's a continuous process. Why it is a continuous process? Because we human beings generate needs, and these needs are never ending. If the needs are never ending, to meet the needs, you have to produce. So production is essential. Production will keep on continuing, and the production will keep on changing the way you produce things, right? The way you produce things in 1800 and 1900 and in 2000s are different. Industrialization and the changes which have been happened, even the classes that we are taking now. I've told you already, this is also a production process, but how it was conducted earlier, how is it conducting now, right? So the production process is there. The production process keep on changing also. Okay, so these are some basic things that I want to say. Now, how are you going to undertake production? To undertake production, you need two things, most importantly. Okay, First is you have to enter into relation with others in order to produce. Alone, it is impossible. Maybe one few things you can make, but if you need to produce, you need to enter into relation with others. Okay, so relations are essential for production to take place. So most important element under production is relation with others. So you will enter into relation with others. Like you entered into relation with me, I enter into relation with you. Why? Because relation is essential for the production to take place. Similarly, the capitalist will enter into relation with worker. Worker will enter into a relation with capitalist. Why? Relation is essential for the production to take place. So relation is very much required for the production to take place. Okay, there's the most essential element. Now, there are two types of relation. Relation between, just 1 minute, guys, just give me 1 minute. Okay, I'll tell and then later I'll write. Okay, so there are two types of relation. That is relation between man and the relation between man and things. When I say man and man, can you guys tell me one example? I hope you have watched the video. I've told you already, if you're sitting for the thinker session, it is always better to watch the video first and come. Then that will give you advantage about the clarity. So when we talk about relation between man and man, these are the relation between people who are engaged in the production process. For example, relation between you and me, capitalist and worker. This is a relation between man and man, two individual, two living part. Okay, so when I say relation of production, this is what Marx terms as relations of production. Now onwards, we will write it as ROP, relations of production. What is that? Relation between man and man, the first one within that. Okay, so between man and man. This is living part. This is also living part, human beings. So this is the relation, the first one, man and man. Example, worker and superior, supervisor, capitalist and the worker, you and me, right? All these are relation between man and man. Second is the relation between man and things. Guys, I'm not writing it completely. If you want, I can do that also. Man and things. What does that mean? The relation between individual and the things which are used in the production. For example, this one, this. Okay, now this man and things, if you see here, it is based on ownership and non-ownership. Okay, related to the things which are used in the production process. But this is living part, man. This is non-living. So this is a relation between living and non-living. Guys, please turn off the video. Yeah, always try to keep the video off. That will be better. So relation between man and man, living. Relation between man and things, living, non-living. Okay. Now, this relation is ownership and non-ownership. For example, when you consider the relation between capitalist and the worker, that is man and man. Now, imagine this case, the machines or the factory, you will use machines for the production, right? Machines you will use, or the tools and techniques and everything that you will use, or I use this pen, right? This is thing. So what is the relation between me and this pen? If you see, it is an ownership relation, right? It is an ownership relation. So this belong to me. If you see from your side, you have a non-ownership relation. Same is the case in a capitalist system. If you consider the machines which are used to undertake production, the capitalist owns the factory, thereby he owns the machines. The worker have non-ownership. Capitalists have ownership relation. This capitalist have ownership relation with the factory and the machines which is used. The worker have non-ownership relation. So that is what I mean by relation between man and things. What kind of relation? Ownership and non-ownership. Guys, I hope this part is clear. The first point is you need to enter into relations to undertake production. Now, what are the two types of relation? Relation between man and man. Without worker, capitalist cannot do anything, right? And worker, if he need to survive, he has to go and work. So they need to enter into relation. That is the first part, living part, man and man. Then man and things. All right. Any doubts here, guys? Okay. Now let's move to the second part. So I've told you there are two parts which we need to see to undertake production. Second part is relation alone is not enough, right? Guys, please, Neha, can you, okay, I've done. So relation alone is not enough. You need some tools and techniques, right? Like this, without this, we can't do anything here. Similarly, we need tools and machines and all in the capitalist setup. So what we call for that, we will call it as forces of production. Okay, so first we talked about we will enter into relations with others. That is what relation of production. Second is we need tools and techniques and all these things. That is what Marx termed as forces of production. So let me write it also. Forces of production. Okay, so now again within forces of production also there are two. The again living and non-living. Within forces also living and non-living. What is that living? Guys, when we talk about the workers or the laborers, that is a labor force, right? They also required for the production. Before we discussed about relation between people, but people are required. Capitalist also required. Worker is also required. Superiors or the supervisors and the managers and all these are required. So these all will come under labor force. Even the capitalist also part of the force. Okay, what we will classify that as? That is class. Okay, that is coming under living. Okay, so I'm writing it as forces of production. Within forces of production, we have the living part. Who will come here? In simple terms, you can just remember it as labor force. Labor, that is the living part, right? So it could be worker, it could be capitalist, it could be the supervisors, it could be managers or anyone who's part of the production. Now, what is the difference between previous one and this one? Here I'm only talking about labor force. Before I talked about the relation between these people. The relation between these people. Here I'm not talking about relation. I'm just talking about we all are part of the force. Between us, there is a relation also. That relation is what I've discussed before. Here I'm just discussing as the part of the process. Okay. Second is obviously the non-living. What is that? Non-living is what the tools and techniques and equipments and everything that you have, right? So all these machines which are used in the factory, the pen that I'm using, the iPad that I'm using, or the laptop that I'm using, or the camera and all these things. These are the non-living part. Now, Marx also terms this as means of production. So what do you mean by means of production? Means of production is the non-living part of forces of production. Means are the tools and techniques. So when I say forces of production, it is having living and non-living. What do you mean by means of production? The tools. Okay. I hope this is clear. What is relations of production? What is forces of production? Production process. That is the most important aspect because everything now going to come from the production process. Okay. And then relations of production, two types, relation between man and man, relation between man and things. I gave you the examples. Now the forces of production, we need tools and techniques and everything for the production process. Living and non-living. The labor force is the living, non-living. That's what means of production, the tools and techniques and equipments and all these things that we use, including all these things. All right, guys. So this is what we need to see as the two important aspects. Now I'll go in simple terms, then we will take the PDF and I'll explain everything. So these are the things that need to be printed in your mind. The other things that we will read and we will see from the PDF and then I can explain more further. Okay. So this is what the core of society. So when he talk about society, there is the forces of production, there is a relations of production. This forms the core of society. And this is what he considered as economic infrastructure. These words are going to be very important, guys. Sometimes you will only write it as infrastructure. Sometimes you can write it as economic infrastructure. When you read some textbooks, you may only see as infrastructure, but this is what you need to interpret. Forces of production, relations of production is what? Infrastructure or economic infrastructure. Okay. Now, this is the core of society. This is what you need to undertake production. So I can take care of production with this. Now, over a period of time, when the production acquires the complex form, that means when you start producing more and more and more, this alone will not be enough. We need more support from some other sources. That's when these institutions will come, like the schools. I'll write it as education, schools and colleges and all, family, religion, politics, Okay, constitution, parliament, and all these things, culture. So these are actually going to help in the production process over a period of time. For example, education will create the labor. Family will send the labor for the workforce. Religion will act as the opium of masses. It will also send the labor force to the capitalist. Okay, so all these are, in fact, according to Marx, that interpretation we will come later. All these are, in fact, created by the capitalist to suit their interest. Whether it is education system, they will produce a cheap labor. The family, they will send the labor and will prevent them from any revolution. Okay, and then religion will act as the opium for masses. The religion will give a promise that you will get heaven in the next world, and you suffer maximum here. If you suffer maximum here, you will get heaven. So politics, parliament is an executive committee of bourgeois. Constitution is the document of bourgeois. Guys, there are a lot of interesting stuffs and all these things we will discuss later, but though that's not that important in your exam. We will first see what is required from exam point of view. So I hope you are getting it. We discussed about production, we discussed about relations, we discussed about forces, FOP and ROP. That forms the core. That's what is required for the production. But with time, what we need other elements also to improve and increase the production. Because over a period of time, the demand will be more and you need to keep on producing things. So we need the support of other elements. These are what Marx called as core, the other is periphery. Marx called as or termed as superstructure. Okay, so this is what? Social superstructure. This is economic infrastructure. We give a lot of importance to economic aspects, the material condition. These are social dimensions. Social dimensions are actually secondary. The core is economic dimension. Social dimension will enable the more production. But the basic thing is the infrastructure, which involve forces of production and relation of production. Others are superstructure. I hope this is clear for you. Now, when we talk about the systemic view of Marx, this is what you need to write. What you need to write is, like, you just show something like this. There's a diagram which is given by Fletcher. So this is what society like based on ROP and FOP. And then there are, these all are what you can write like religion, culture, family, then what the political system or political system. And there everything else you see, all these are coming under superstructure. Okay, so this is what systemic view of society. If they're asking you systemic view of society, this is what you need to write. Now, let me tell you one more thing. This diagram also you need to remember. I hope now you understood what is economic infrastructure. Economic infrastructure and then social superstructure. What Marx says is, see this superstructure, the family, the religion, the culture, the political system, the everything, right? It is actually created by the economic infrastructure, or it is created by capitalists in case of capitalist society. So all these are created by the economic infrastructure. Why? Because this is required for more production. So the economic infrastructure shapes the superstructure. Why it is done? Because which in turn will help in the functioning of the economic infrastructure. Now guys, this is a Marxian perspective. This is the most important understanding that you need to have. Marx understands everything in terms of FOP and ROP, the production process, importance to economic infrastructure. That is going to be the criticism also later. So for Marx, everything you see in society is actually created by economic infrastructure. We have different types of society. If you take capitalist society, it is a capitalist who create everything. Why? For example, the police system. Police system is created by the capitalists because it is actually helping them. The judiciary, it is also created by the capitalist, which will help in the capitalist for the production to take place. The education system created by the capitalist or the, I would say, economic infrastructure, okay, which in turn will help in the functioning by providing labor and all these things. Family, everything. You got my point? Okay, so this is the most important point and the diagram that you need to remember. Every Marxian analysis and questions you will be writing this. Economic infrastructure shapes the superstructure, which in turn will help in the functioning of the infrastructure. So family is created by the capitalist, if you talk about capitalist society, which in turn will help in the functioning of the capitalist system. Education system, the schools and the colleges and everything is shaped by the infrastructure, because these are coming in superstructure, okay, which in turn will help in the capitalist system. If you talk about capitalist society, there are other societies also, feudal society, different other societies also, that we will be discussing tomorrow. Are you guys with me so far? Any doubts till now? So we discussed about the production process, the relations of production, the forces of production, two types of relations, relation between man and man, relation between man and things, forces of production, the living and the non-living, all right? And then we discussed about, that's the core, that is the FOP and ROP. That is what you consider as what? The economic infrastructure, right? And then there is a superstructure. When the superstructure will evolve, it will evolve when you need to produce more and more. To undertake production, FOP and ROP is enough in the beginning. But when the production acquires a more complex form, to aid that process, to support that process, you need the help of these institutions. So that's how these institutions are coming. And if you talk specifically from capitalist society, these institutions are created by the capitalists. A feudal society, if you see the education model in feudal society and capitalist system is different. The kind of family is different. There it was joint family, now it is nuclear family. Because nuclear family is a demand of the time that will help in migration. That is a requirement of a capitalist. Right? Religion, you are so much into that. Now there is a change and everything. Political system, there is a different culture then and now. We will analyze all these in the tomorrow's session. But now just understand, superstructure is shaped by the economic infrastructure. This is the most important slide, I would say. Economic infrastructure shapes the superstructure, and which in turn will help in the. Now, how is it shaping means it depends on the system. What kind of system? Capitalist system, we need to fulfill the demand for the capitalist system, right? For example, when we need more capitalist system, you need people to be placed in different areas. So joint family will prevent that, so nuclear family will come. You need to create laborers, engineers, and all these people. So we need that kind of education system. We need a liberal political system, so that political system is also changed. Okay, that's how it will automatically happen. It's not that you will do it, right? It will automatically happen over a period of time. So this much is clear. View about individual I'll discuss after we discuss the PDF. Let's look into the PDF now. And then there are a lot of things which I might have missed out here. We will see there. Okay, so guys, I hope you can just 1 minute. Okay, so Marx says, in order to survive, man must produce. Guys, if you have any doubt in between the lines also, you can stop and you can ask me. We will clear that. Okay, try to understand between the lines. According to Marx, production of material life is the first historical act in the history of human civilization. It is also a starting point of the history or the society. Production is essential for the survival of human beings. It is a fundamental condition of history, as this act is never ending and follows an evolutionary path. What is this evolutionary path and everything we will see tomorrow, right? From ancient society to feudal society to capitalist society, then socialism and communism. We will do that tomorrow. That's what I have told you. Even Marx also used the, inspired by Darwin's theory of biological evolution to understand society. Okay. Underlying this necessity of production, Marx also holds some specific assumption about individual. For him, human beings generate needs, and man is perpetually a dissatisfied animal. When the basic needs are met, he creates new needs. This initiate initiate a beginning of constant struggle between man and nature. Why there is a struggle? Because initially we can get everything from the nature, but when we start demanding more and more, then there is a struggle between man and nature. We have to produce things, otherwise we won't get it. The struggle is reflected in terms of continuous development in the nature of production or in the way man produces things, right? So because of that struggle only, we have modified and we have evolved with the way we produce things. In order to produce, man must enter into relation with others. That means we need to organize for undertaking production, right? According to Marx, the organization of production varies from era to era and from society to society. Of course, now even if you take this class itself, you need to enter into relation with me if you need to know sociology, or any teacher, right? Same is the case with the teachers as well. They have to get the students if they need to enter into the production process. Means value addition. If you need to survive, you have to add value, right? Without that, see, how you make money. Not generally I'm talking about. This is a simple rule of making money. Making money is all about solving problems, right? Without solving problems, you cannot print money. So how you get money? You will get money from some others. So why they need to give you money? You have to solve the problem. What does that mean by, what do you mean by solving problem? It is nothing but value addition. Add value to them. Something which they cannot do, you have to do. Right? That is what you mean by value addition. That is what you mean by production. Now, the production could be for individual survival also, but I'm talking in general, the idea of production. Production is basically value addition. So even if you see what we calculate in GDP, we will calculate the GDP as value addition, right? So value addition is what actually required, and for that only you will get paid. So, of course, nature imposed limitation on the organization of production, but it does not completely determine it. Man has the capability to control nature, right? So we change the way we produce things and we have the capability to control nature, right? All restrictions, if it is raining, we know how to, tackle rain, right? Whatever restrictions nature come up with, we know how to tackle it. Thus, the relations are essential for the production to take place. Further, we also need tools and techniques and equipments and all those things. So relations of production and forces of production. Relation of production, there are two: relation between man and man, relation between man and things. So man and man, living, this is living and non-living. Okay, now guys, I'm not reading it out completely. I hope you understood. There is a waste of time. So man and man means people engaged in the production process, workers and the capitalists and the supervisors and all these. Man and things, it is nothing but ownership and non-ownership. For example, a capitalist owns the factory. That means it's the ownership between man and things. Worker, non-ownership. Now, this is the most important point that I have missed out. See, what Marx says is, people in the production process are actually in an antagonist cooperation. What do you mean by antagonist cooperation? Guys, the interests are contradictory. Like, for example, if you take capitalist and the worker, their interests are contradictory. Why it is contradictory? The capitalist wants maximum profit. He is only looking for profit. Maximum profit means you have to pay very less to the workers, right? That's when you can improve the profit, or not good working condition. You need workers to work more time so that they can produce more and you can make more profit. But the workers want to work less time, more wages. That's what you mean by contradictory interests. Their interests are contradictory. That means there is a cooperation, but there is a contradiction. Cooperation, contradiction. That cooperation and contradiction is what you understand as antagonist cooperation. So people are always in an antagonist cooperation. Okay? The relationship between people in the existing societies are conceptualized as antagonist cooperation. That means, like, there is a, what is that written in the bracket? As cooperation exists in society in spite of differences. Okay. Now forces. Guys, any doubts so far? Yeah, they cannot survive without other. That's why they're cooperating. But there is a contradiction. That's why we consider it as antagonist cooperation. There is a cooperation, but antagonist cooperation. All right. So man and things. So this is what means of production. So guys, the non-living part of forces of production, that is how you need to interpret it. Okay, so I'm expecting that you're able to follow this. The non-living part of forces of production is what? Means of production. Okay. Man include human being. Okay, we discussed that. Things include the tools and techniques and everything. Just there is no point in reading it out, guys. The same point only. Now, this is very important. According to Marx, there is a close relation between forces of production and relation of production. The relations of production changes with the forces of production and vice versa. There is a constant interplay between these two. Okay, now what do you mean by that? See, let's say when I say the relations of production will change with forces of production, what do you mean by that? See, like A and B, they are in relation to undertake a production process. Let's say both this A is a agriculturalist. Okay, so he have a huge. Let's say this is the amount of that land that he have. So A will be in touch with B, usually, let's say for the purpose of tilling the land. Okay, now this B as a traditional person, he used the bullock cart setup for the land tilling, right? So that bullock cart setup is what he used to use. So this is the forces of production now, correct? Now what happened is tractors have come. So C owns the tractor. Here it is bullock cart setup. So C owns the tractor. Now A will start thinking. That means there is a change in forces of production, right? So forces of production have changed. Now A will start thinking about this relation. Why I need to be in this relation? If I move to this, there is an advantage. I can save time. I can save money. I can get better quality soil as well, right? With that machine. So what will happen? There is a change in forces of, this is delta. I use that delta. So there is a change in forces of production. There is a change in relations of production. Correct? Now, if you can, or you can even consider your case also. I don't know whether I can explain here that way. Let's say this is you, okay? And this is your sociology teacher one in your city. Now, you were studying there. Now, what happened? Because there is a change in technology and all these things, the Zoom classes are there. So now you have another teacher, right? Another sociology teacher. So instead of this person who's like a local teacher, you can get access to someone who's sitting in Kerala and can guide you. So now you have shifted to this. So why this shift is there? Why this relation of production have changed? Because there is a change in forces of production. You will always shift to the better one. Okay, so that is what I mean by there is a change in forces, the relation will automatically change. Okay, now, according to Marx, as the production acquires complex form, it is made possible not only because of relations and forces. That's what I've told you guys. When you see when the production is getting higher and higher and getting a complex form, we cannot do that alone with forces and relations. We need so many other factors. That means it's a result of complex operation of number of factors. Yes, Parashuram, you can type there. Okay. Now, these number of factors is what I've told you as superstructure. Thus, the influence of production is not only limited to producing things only, but it also creates other conditions in society which make the production possible. What are these other conditions? That's what the superstructural elements. According to Marx, the complex interplay between FOP and ROP result into a particular social formation. Now, guys, listen this word very carefully. This is what you need to write in your answer. Social formation means society. So Marx used different terms to explain society. Sometimes you see social formation, sometimes you see mode of production. These all are nothing but society. So rather than you writing it as society, you use the word social formation when you're talking about Marx. Okay. Yeah, the relations have been changed due to change in forces of production. So this forms the basis of systemic view of Marx. Okay, so guys, if this can be asked as a separate question, which was also asked, what is systemic view? If they're asking you systemic view, what all things you need to write now? Talk about the production process, talk about forces of production, the two types, talk about the relations of production, the two types, then write this FOP, ROP, that forms the infrastructure. And when the production acquires complex form, the other elements also created, that is a superstructure, and that you can see as a systemic view like this. This is a diagram which is actually given by Fletcher, but you need to complete it. Just complete it, just drop this. Okay. So there's a, you can also make a dotted line like this because this is not the end, right? We need more elements here. Did you guys got this? Now here, economic infrastructure, what you need to write inside is FOP and ROP. Do that also. So FOP, ROP, okay, and then these are superstructure, correct? This is a diagram which is given by Fletcher. But before this, you need to draw the one which I've told you. That is the original one, right? This is FOP, this is ROP, and this is what economic infrastructure. Here comes the education system, family system, religion, politics, judiciary, everything, culture, everything. These are superstructural elements. So guys, simple now. For Marx, all these are created by whom? All these are created by the economic infrastructure. That's the diagram which I'm going to give you now. This one. If you see here, economic infrastructure, right? Economic infrastructure involved FOP and ROP. This is what Marxian perspective. This is the only point that you need to understand. Which shape the superstructure, which include everything, even your ideas. That is what we are going to use in dialectical idealism, Hegel's theory, how Marx have changed it. That we will discuss tomorrow. Okay. Social superstructure, the schools or the education and everything, it is created by infrastructure. Why? It will help in the functioning. Okay. So guys, as the economic infrastructure changes, the superstructure also changes. Why? Because economic infrastructure is shaping the superstructure, which in turn help in the functioning of economic infrastructure. Okay, thus the total organization of society according to Marx is based on nature of production. Guys, see, if this change, this also will change. Why? Because this shape the superstructure. So when economic infrastructure change, you need a changed infrastructure, superstructure, right? So for example, ancient society, the superstructural elements are different than the capitalist society. Why? Because the economic infrastructure in both are different. Correct? Okay, now we will quickly see the idea about human beings. First, we discussed about the human beings generate needs and he create new needs and that lead to production and everything. He also talked about this dimension, the concept of being and social being. We will be using this again later in the theory of alienation and we'll be discussing in detail over there as well. Guys, when I say being, means what you originally are, right? Now, if you see from my case, what originally I am is what being. When I say social being, or when you see social being, like you see me as a teacher, that's a social being. So these words like worker or doctor or teacher or a police officer, what all these signify, these are social being. What is social being? Social being is nothing but what you are in society. What you are in society means your position in the production process. You guys got it? So when I say social being, it is nothing but your position in the production process. If you are an engineer, you are an engineer. You are a teacher, you are a teacher. So you are known as a teacher, you are known as a police officer, you are known as a doctor. These are social being. When you say being, what you originally are, what you are capable of. You may be capable of doing many things, right? That is what you mean by being. We'll discuss more about this in the chapter on alienation. Apart from developing a linkage between production and society, Marx also examined the influence of production on individual consciousness. Practically, individual consciousness falls within the domain of superstructure. The consciousness of an individual is influenced by a person's position in the process of production. To further clarify the idea of consciousness, Marx distinguishes between being and social being. Being is the basic nature of man, independent of his existence, what you originally are. According to Marx, this being is perpetually unsatisfied. Further, Marx's conception of being is in terms of creative humanism. Creative humanism means it's not that you are a doctor, you are an engineer. You have the capacity to do anything and everything. Yeah, social being is related to the work that he's doing, the profession that he's having, the role in the production process. Okay. Social being refers to the existence of an individual in society. So what you are in society. The social being is one's place in the production process, where you stand in the production process. It is defined by the nature of activity performed by individual. What you do, that's what defining your social being. For example, the term workers, managers denote social being. According to Marx, individual consciousness in society is determined by one's being, social being rather than being, right? What you think and everything is decided by whom? It is the position in the production process. If you are an IAS officer, you will think like that. You're a teacher, you will think like that. You're a worker, you'll think like that. If you're a capitalist, you think like that, right? If you're an entrepreneur, the way you think will be like that. So your consciousness, what you think and what you act will depends on the position in the production process. That's why I've told you, your consciousness is also shaped by the economic infrastructure, because your position in the production process is decided by the infrastructure, correct? So what we have discussed now so far, I'll just quickly repeat it and then we will finish it off. So guys, we started off with the production process. Now I'm not discussing again the same things. Production is essential and all those things. To undertake production, we need relations of production. We need forces of production. There are two types of relations of production: living, to man and man, man and things. There are forces of production, living and non-living. And then we have discussed about the systemic view. And then we have discussed about the inverse relations. And then we discussed about economic infrastructure shape the superstructure, which in turn will help in the functioning of economic infrastructure. Then we have also discussed about the concept of being and social being. Okay, so that's it from the first session of Marx. Now we will discuss more tomorrow in the coming session, the theories. I'll just unmute you. Whatever doubts you have, you can just turn on the mic and you can ask.